So, if you had told me that back in 2022 a manga would change who I am as a person, I would have thought you were crazy. And yet, as of making this video, I am caught up on Blue Lock, which is chapter 350 now, and it came out just this week. And it was such a good chapter, but to this day, I'm still glad I started this manga. It's basically one of the best pieces of fiction I've ever read, and it's not necessarily because of the story, it's because of the concept it tackles, which is ego. Now, what is ego? Like, what's ego? And honestly, I think it's kind of hard to explain that. Like, it's very hard to explain what ego is, but I'm going to give it my best shot in my own definition. And what ego is basically how you interact in the world based on how you see yourself. And that is the simplest definition I can provide, but I think it's as close to it as I can get. And the thing is, I didn't always think this way though. So back in high school, I actually thought ego was a bad thing. I thought ego was bad. And the reason why I thought ego was bad was because I didn't have an ego. Or at least that's what I told myself. I told myself I don't have an ego, but the problem with that perspective for me was that, oh, because I don't have an ego, I don't have the will basically to go after what I want. And the thing is that this is actually a incorrect way of thinking about ego entirely, because everyone has an ego. And by telling myself I didn't have an ego at all because I wasn't going after what I want in life, that in and of itself was an ego that allowed me to stay self-destructive and unproductive and self-loathing. Just carrying this like burden of not liking myself was what allowed this perspective on ego to basically enable. And that was not good for me because I ended up not taking more risks that I should have. I just was like, I would say probably a low testosterone kid through high school, if that's the best way I can put it. I just didn't have like my testosterone pumping at a time when it should have been. But the thing is that I carried this through college too. It wasn't just high school, it was also college. And the problems that I carried in high school I then carried into college because of lockdown just making things worse. Like, lockdown started for me just in my second semester at university, which was still like me getting used to things. And keep in mind, my first semester, I was making friends. I was like trying to, get to know people and like work together on projects and stuff. But by going to lockdown, everything was just online, and my problems got worse. They didn't get better during that time period. So keep in mind, I'm just like scrawny. I'm scrawny, skinny, um, probably depressed, and just like really concerned about where I'm going in life. Like, I didn't know where I was going in life at all, and I didn't know where I was going to end up, whether I was going to be successful and make money or anything. I was like really concerned about myself to the point where I was just super depressed. And I was fortunate enough to start reading Blue Lock when the 2022 World Cup happened. The first episode of Blue Lock, I think, aired around that time. And after I watched the first episode, I was hooked. So I said, screw waiting for the show to come out. I'm just going to read the manga right now. And then I'll watch the show as it comes out. And honestly, I'm so glad I did it this way, guys, because, well, one, the art is gorgeous in the manga. The art is just gorgeous. And two, I got to basically read this piece of art. And I call it art because, like I said at the start of the video, it explores the concept of ego. And this exploring of ego not only changed my life, I think it completely saved me from the despair I was worried I was like going to like run into as I got older. And it's literally because of this manga. So what this manga does really well is that it explores the concept of ego, and it does that by showing you different characters' perspectives on you, like interacting with the world based on how they see themselves. And it leads to these really interesting interactions between characters, in between their goals, the way like certain people are in the way of their goals, right? To like each other. And it also shows that by using your ego, you can create a toolkit basically to get around those problems that is unique to yourself as a human being. And that is what is so beautiful about the way Blue Lock explores ego. And this changed my life. This literally changed my life. So instead of being so critical about myself, I stopped. And it's not perfect. Like there are some days where I'm not having the best thoughts I should be, but I'm really good at putting a lid on it now and like taking care of it fast, which is that like having negative thoughts about myself. Getting this helped me learn how to get rid of those for the most part. And this manga has influenced who I've become because I've seen how, like, based on a piece of like, this is so weird how fiction sometimes changes your life more than like nonfiction. It's very strange how fiction does that. But basically, by seeing how other characters evolve, in particular the main character, it it made me figure out the kind of tools I have in my own skill set to basically continue evolving like these characters in the manga do. And that has literally changed my life. And the character that has had the most impact in terms of how I think about myself and how I interact with the world now is the main character, Isagi Yoichi. So I'm going to try not to give too much spoilers about the story, but I am going to reveal some things I think, just by nature of talking about this guy in terms of how he plays the game. So basically, Isagi's biggest, like, strongest point as a player is not in any of his like physical capabilities. Like, he doesn't run fast, he's not a good dribbler, he doesn't like have a good shot, like he doesn't have like a strong kick where he can just nail anything from halfway across the map, right? He doesn't have like a crazy good physique. He can't like body people out the way, right? He's just lacking in so many different areas that you would normally think players need to be able to do well. But what Isagi has that no other player has, to the degree that he has it, is how adaptable Isagi is. Isagi is an adaptability demon basically, and it's so rewarding to see that, because quite honestly, I think I strongly resonate with the way how Isagi thinks about things. Now, that's going to sound kind of cringe because I'm not saying, "Oh, I'm him." Like, I'm not saying that lame ass shit. What I'm saying is the way how Isagi is adaptable by using neuroplasticity and metacognition, like both of those, right? By like thinking about the way he thinks and like his thought processes and breaking it down. I find that to be really helpful in terms of how I think, in terms of how I use my brain basically to think about things and solve problems. And it's so funny how the cliches of like, oh, sometimes you're just not thinking about it right. Like sometimes you just need to change your perspective or think outside the box, right? Like when people say think outside the box, this is what they're kind of getting at. That like, oh, wait, my understanding of the world is completely wrong. I need to change the way how I see the world in order to basically overcome this difficulty. And that is what makes the story of Blue Lock so special, is that it explores that over and over and over again in a way that's refreshing. The art is beautiful, like I said, and quite honestly, yeah, this manga has changed my life. I highly recommend it. But by using the neuroplasticity and metacognition, using these two has helped me change the way I think, and part of that has part of that changing in thinking is how I view myself, and basically challenging the thoughts that I had about myself, and basically by doing this, you can create opportunities for yourself. You can see things that weren't there before. And an example of this would be like snowboarding, right? So I have been snowboarding for a long time, but I actually am not like expert level. I would say I'm very advanced, but there's certain things that I have not done very much that I'm like totally trash at. One of the things I can think of is riding switch, which is basically like when you change which side of the board you're riding on. So instead of like riding down the hill regular, you start riding down the hill goofy, which means that like your foot orientation flips. I'm a regular rider, and riding goofy for me has been so difficult for so long. But I finally took the time to kind of practice it this winter, even when it felt awkward or difficult. And I need to do way more this upcoming season, which is crazy to say because it's just getting into summer. But anyways, I have a lot to work on, and I'm really excited about working on it. Just like carving, riding switch, doing rails and boxes. I did do some boxes, but I was not able to bring myself to try rails. But by changing the way I think about myself, instead of thinking like, oh, I can't do that, or I'm too afraid to do it, I need to rewire the way that I think about myself, what I think I'm capable of, and then just taking action. And the reason why I'm explaining all this to you guys that are listening today is because I want you all to do the same. It's funny. We can literally change the way how we think about things. We can change the way that we use our mind, but they don't teach us how to do this in school. And I'm very confident in saying that it's because they don't want you to be able to do this. They want the people who have set up the school system, they want you to basically think the same way so that you can just sit somewhere and you're a cog in a machine and you can just get replaced as soon as you're not like fulfilling your need the best way you can, right? They don't want critical, independent thinking people in this country. George Carlin said it before, and I'm just borrowing from him. So it's really sad just seeing the way how our school system sets kids up. They're not even really setting them up. They're really, well, I guess they are setting them up. They're setting them up to get screwed over, but that's besides the point. The point I'm trying to make is you don't have to continue with your programming. Like if you've been programmed some kind of way, which I definitely was, and I still kind of am, but I'm working on it. Like you can get out of the program. You don't have to stay stuck in the way that you think and feel about things, right? Now, I do want to make it clear. Part of changing your mental behavior is going to require taking good care of your physical health. Okay? Like if you're in terrible physical health, doing this mentally is going to be so much more difficult. It's probably going to be impossible. But if you're in good shape and healthy and taking care of your life and taking care of your responsibilities, this is a really good way to make like rewire the way that you just look at the world. And that is such a helpful skill in my opinion, because that means that you can overcome anything. Like, that's the root skill of all this, is you can overcome any problem somehow or some way. You can overcome it. And that's why Blue Lock has had such an impact on my life. Anyways, I've been yapping for 15 minutes now. I appreciate you all listening. I hope you have a great weekend. Have a good night. Peace.